Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and a very good morning to everyone. Welcome back to another session of IUM Industrial Webinar Series organized by Office of Industrial Links IIUM. I'm Khalilah Zakaria, the Deputy Director from Office of Industrial Link, and I'll be your host for today. So the current series of our IUM Industrial Webinar Series features a sharing session from our CEO at Faculty Program Fellows. So the CFP program or CEO Faculty Program is actually a program where selected academics go for an industrial attachment for 6 months at GLCs or MNCs in Malaysia. And this is a program organized by the Ministry of Higher Education. So for the first cycle back in 2017 and 2018, IUM had 2 lecturers who were selected for the program. And then for the second cycle, 6 IUM lecturers were selected to go and have their attachment at the industry. And for the third cycle, another 5 lecturers were selected to go for an attachment in 2020. Each year, when each cycle opened, there would be around more than 500 applicants from IPTAs across the nation. So it's quite a competitive selection process. And then a selected pool of about 40 to 50 academics would be doing an attachment at the company. Now, the interesting thing is that not all of the attachment, or basically most of the attachment, are not based on technical matching or technical skills match. For instance, as you will see today, we have a quantity surveyor who is attached at McDonald's. So we must be wondering, what would a QS do at McDonald's and a food and beverage industry, and then you have someone from the built environment industry. So today we have the great pleasure to invite a colleague of mine, Assistant Professor Dr. Saifulnizam Suhaimi from Department of Quantity Surveying, Kulliyyah of Architecture and Environmental Design IIUM. Dr. Saiful was attached at McDonald's from February until August 2020 for 6 months. So let's bring in Dr. Saiful to the screen.
Assalamualaikum, Dr. Khalilah.
Waalaikumsalam. How are you, Dr. Saiful?
Good, Alhamdulillah. Thank you so much. Thank you for your warm introduction.
Yeah, so we are excited to know and actually quite curious, what would a QS do at McDonald's? So without any further delay, I won't spoil the surprise, and I'm looking forward to hear your sharing session. So for the audience, you're most welcome to give a shout out on the chat box in YouTube where you're from, and then maybe you were also a CFP fellow from Cycle 3, Cycle 2, or Cycle 1, or maybe your IM academics who would like to apply when the next cycle open, and then we can have the Q&A session and discussion after Dr. Saiful finish his sharing session. So the screen is yours, Dr. Saiful.
Thank you so much, Dr. Khalilah. Thanks again. First of all, thank you, Dr. Khalilah, for organizing this session. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, everyone. My name is Dr. Saifulnizam. Allow me to just briefly introduce myself and my background on my journey towards this particular process. I'm actually an alumni of IUM, so my first batch of a quantity surveying student. So basically, my degree is in quantity surveying under the Kulliyyah of Architecture, and then my master's in project management. My PhD, I work on the value engineering and management, particularly on the airport planning, on the cost management, and also cost saving within the value engineering side. So I did in the Queensland University of Technology, Australia. So I have a previous working experience in local and also international markets industries, basically focusing on civil engineering works and also high-rise tower. So let us begin. So allow me to just introduce the slides here. Can you go just hold on? Let me share my slides for presentation today. Okay. Can you confirm that you can see my slide? Is the slide on, Dr. Khalilah or Faizal?
Yes, we can see it clearly.
All right, thank you so much. Okay, all right, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So, brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, so allow me to bring you to the journey that I have experienced as a fellow at the McDonald's, or we call it Gerbang Alaf. So the things that I'm going to focus today is my journey as a quantity surveyor's experience in understanding project management within the food and beverages industry. All right, so I divided this talk into 4 areas or 4 segments. So first one basically is about what the program is all about. I believe Dr. Khalilah has already give a good summary of what the program is all about. And then I'm going to walk you through the understanding food and beverages industries, the McDonald's experience. So I'm not going to go very particularly detailed about what food and beverages industry is all about, but particularly on what I have experienced at McDonald's. And then the third one, I'll be focusing on the new store development, the NST, as what we practice in McDonald's Malaysia. And finally, I'll take some questions from you just to give some enlightenment or any thoughts that you may have along the way. All right, so basically this program is about academic industry talent exchange program. So you have heard the CEO faculty program, and that program basically we bring CEOs from big companies and they attach to the universities and giving talks and giving lectures. So in return, under the AIX exchange program under the KPT, the industry or the academia, we in turn go back to the industry and we be exposed to all the worlds of the, what you call it, the corporate worlds, the industry, so there is a complementary services. So this is a program under the KPT, and the process itself involve what you call it a stringent a few processes and level of what you call it an application. So we have to go through what you call it a team building program, seed it into a minor quizzes and answers. We got to go through the interview processes from the universities up to the Ministry of Higher Education. And at that point, we are being given a task. We're given a task that we need to complete, and also we are given a chance to select which company that we wanted to enroll ourselves in this program. At that time, there was around 360 plus application during my third cycle. So we were lucky enough to have a lot of, or at least 50 companies that were participating in that particular program. So we were given a chance. So each candidate were given 2 choices to select any company that you think that will suit your particular skills and knowledge that you can feel that you can contribute. So I did apply. I did put up my top 2 company that I wished to enroll with. But unfortunately, throughout the processes, after the final stages, I wasn't given the company that I wish to attach. Okay, but however, the turning point is that when we were filtered along the processes, when Dr. Kella mentioned that we up to 50 fellows, the last stage was to have an interview with all CEOs of the companies. So we take turns to be interviewed, a group interview with all the CEOs. There are 5 of us candidates in the group, and then we will interview with 5 CEOs. We take turns and being talk about what our passion, what our contribution, what is our strength and weaknesses. It turned out that, in my opinion, McDonald's was attracted to the skill set that I have, and they shortlisted me and they selected me. So back to when I mentioned that the company that I applied, I got 2 companies that I applied that I didn't got. But eventually McDonald's gave a response and McDonald's selected me. Okay, so what happened was that there was a turning point. A turning point in this situation. I was in what you call it the dilemma whether I should proceed or not, because it's a totally something new. I've never been in the food and beverage industry, have zero knowledge, and I'm not sure where and how should I put my knowledge and position myself into the food and beverage industries. As I take it myself as a layman person, when we talk about McDonald's, all the things that we understand or we come into our mind is burgers, fries, the things that Happy Meals for the kids. It's all about the food. Never come across my mind, how am I going to impart or my knowledge into the area? But again, I talked to my seniors fellow, one of it is Dr. Khalilah, and she given me a motivation to explore new things, maybe something that can lighten up my process. So I took up the challenge. You can see on the right-hand side of my screen is 5 fellows. We were among the 5 fellows across 50 fellows that were selected in Cycle 3. So we got Dr. Said Marwan, Dr. Izzat, me, myself, Dr. Farhin, and also Dr. Nurhanis. under my faculty. So all five of us were the selected fellow from IUM to join the process. Now, let us begin with my journey in the Gerbang Alaf. So basically, let me go through basically about McDonald's and Gerbang Alaf. So in Malaysia, McDonald's Malaysia is owned under the Gerbang Alaf Sdn Bhd. So McDonald's at the moment, they have 36,000 restaurants worldwide, serving more than 69 million customers. So at the moment, they employ more than 14,000 employees nationwide. And then in 1980, Gerbang Alaf, formerly known as Golden Arches, licensee of McDonald's, won the license to operate McDonald's in Malaysia, which means that they were given a full control about the directions and how to regulate the McDonald's in Malaysia. So meaning that the McDonald's Malaysia, ever since 1980, was no longer under the control of the United States, meaning that they were given a chance to explore the business and tailored toward the Malaysian suits. So meaning that it's 100% Malaysian owned, except that they have to abide by the certain licensees rules and regulation, whereby in terms of what they call it, the branding, the approach, the menu, they still bound toward the original McDonald's. So the first McDonald's in Malaysia, but what I have been told, what I have been experienced, that first McDonald's in Malaysia was opened in Bukit Bintang on the 29th April 1982. So if you've been to Bukit Bintang, if you've seen a big signage that have the word MACD, M-E-K-D-I, that is a commemorative way of how McDonald's would like to put a stamp that is as a Malaysian, try to reflect the Malaysian identity of how we pronounce McDonald's. Okay, in Malaysia, we pronounce it as McDonald's. Sometimes the short form, we call it MACD. In Australia, we call it some Macca's. And other parts of the world, they have different terms that they use. So for McDonald's, the MACD. So that's why in the Bukit Bintang, they put at the MACD signages as a sign that is a Malaysian-owned entity. So, being myself, at the McDonald's, there are two fellows that were selected into the program, me, myself, and another one is Dr. Farah from UTM. So we were selected. So basically, on average, under this program, there are two fellows attached to a company. So on average, two fellows. So me and Dr. Farah from UTM. So the new experience begin on the first day of reporting. So we report to the first day to the McDonald's Vice President of Human Resource, Mr. Azhar Dabi. If you can see from the images, that is Mr. Azhar Dabi. And both of us, me and Dr. Farah, were in the typical office attire. And to tell you the truth, that was our first day, and that's the only day that I wore a tie to the office. And the rest of the day is more casual. You see, you see how Mr. Azhar Dabi dressed? He's very casual. He's a vice president for human resource. That's the culture that they have in McDonald's. So meaning that that's the first thing that I've learned, changing the culture, adapting to the way they are doing things. So there are a lot of things. So they also make a very welcoming, what they call it, presence to us. Is our thumbprint. You can see from the screen here, the thumbprint they put it, Dr. Saiful, CEO. Eventually, this was some stories behind it lah. So when they put up this thumbprint, they put it, Dr. Saiful, CEO. There are some within the community in the office at that time was quite confused whether is indeed a new CEO or a CEO in training within that particular. They were not aware about the program, so they thought that some of them thought that I was the CEO and have a trouble to explain to the people around them that this is not what it is. It's about training. So that's program called a CEO. So because they saw this what they call it, the thumbprint is within the IT punya team lah, they told us that okay, they are asking whether you are CEO or not. So I think it's okay. It's just I'm just part of the training process. So let me walk through the things that I go through in terms of understanding the food and beverages industries in the McDonald's. So I list down there are certain key activities or the key things that I've gone through. We got through the first thing, they put up us on the orientation at the McDonald's, and then they put us on an on-job training. and then we will send to the what we call it a NABIT. NABIT is an internal McDonald's way of what we call it operation maintenance, operation training for all the employees. They call it NABIT, nut and bolt training. It's a training where they're focusing on how to tackle operational issues, meaning how to serve people, how to make sure the serving timing is well kept, and how the safety issue is being taken care of within the industry, within the what they call it, the restaurant. And then I also have been given an opportunity to involve in the franchisee meetings. As you know, McDonald's, there are more than 300 stores in Malaysia, but there are several stores that were owned through the franchisee licensing. So not all. So not all the McDonald's is owned 100% by McDonald's, but there are certain, if I'm not mistaken, it's around 20 to 30 stores within Malaysia. If I might get the not to get the updated numbers, around 20 franchisees, which means that belongs to individual who get a licenses to operate a McDonald's. Okay, there are several. Okay, one of it that I make aware that I'm quite close to it is in Segamat. McDonald's in Segamat, the Segamat punya city. There, okay, there is a one McDonald's is owned by one individual, so it's one of the franchisees lah. And then our position, I put into position at the restaurant service group, so the RSG. So McDonald's, they have a headquarters, okay, headquarters which is in Uptown Damansara. So Uptown Damansara, we don't call it headquarters. What they call it is a restaurant service group. So this is the story behind the McDonald's transition from the calling McDonald's headquarters to RSG. They want to shift. They want to make sure that the headquarters is operating and serving all the restaurant in a more friendlier manner. Instead of the branding themselves as a headquarters, they decide to put up the rebrand the office into a restaurant service group. So it's more on a bigger strategic level company serving up the cafes and all the restaurant at McDonald's. So the RSG is where both of us, the fellows, are being positioned. We are in the office of all the key management people and also the operation people who are the brainchild behind the McDonald's in Malaysia. And we also been given a task, or we've been able to put into experience to go for a market quest. So let me just walk through some of the experience that I have. So for the orientation, we were given a task, okay? So orientation, this orientation, they put us, the fellows, alongside with the new staff of McDonald's. They are separating two approach, okay? One is operational staff, which is more located at the RSG. Another training or the orientation is for the McDonald's staff at the cafe. So there are two separate. For this one is basically for the operation staff, which is at the RSG. The orientation was done at the McDonald's Vocational Academy, which is situated at Mutiara Damansara. So let me walk through the things that I've learned during the orientation. So it's not just an ordinary orientation. Remember when I said that I am coming from a quantity surveying background, I have zero knowledge about food and beverage industries, and I'm not sure where can I contribute. So I take this opportunity for the orientation to immerse myself into the world of the food beverages, especially on the McDonald's. So they walk through to us with what we call it the orientation. The first orientation, we were focusing on the human resources. We were going through about how career development, how crew management within the McDonald's industry. We were given a chance to see how they develop the talents, what are the career path within the McDonald's, and how what we call it staff retainment and employment retainment is being done at McDonald's. Of course, into to very outsiders, I still consider myself at that time was an outsiders, is that we were thinking about displurge the staff with a lot of goodies and things because it's a McDonald's. But eventually that's not the case. How McDonald's really retain the staff is through a proper and very structured manners, what we call it, with good remuneration packages and good working environment, but eventually they allow for creativities of the staff to impart their own ideas into the management team. So that's how I see what we call it, the rooms that are given by McDonald's in terms of their staff or their employees to grow. So it's not about the dollars and cents in terms of the gift that you get, but it's more on empowerment that they give to the staff. So that's one aspect of the human resources. The second part was that corporate communication. Corporate communication, we were exposed to how McDonald's handles communications toward the publics via Twitters, via Facebooks, Instagram, emails, or how they respond to certain issues that emanating from the publics, certain issues regarding the menus, certain issues regarding the food, and there are different way they are how they tackle things. So corporate communications orientation at that time was given by one of their head. It was a very what you call it dynamic. She was taken us to share with how they handle situation when things not going in the very right direction. How to make sure that what you call it the order is be retained in communicating to the public. I learned a lot about how communication should be done, how the food and services industry responded to any certain critical issues, but in a very diplomatic way, and what you call it is very effectively and legally correct. And the next one is we were given a briefing or orientation on the strategic and insight where the big data comes in. And I started to open up my mind because all this while I was thinking that McDonald's is all about food. And then when it comes to strategic and insight, I was able to capture and see that the data analytics was being used in McDonald's to understand the patterns. When I say understand the pattern, they are looking about the patterns of food that they sell at the counter, the patterns of the demographics of the customers, whether it's going to be a certain location, whether it's a certain gender, whether it's a certain what they call it age groups. Okay, they're also looking at they be able based on data and they're able to capture the timing of where the food and sales are being generated at a very high volume, especially for instance during the lunchtime. They be able to capture from their system the lunchtime during the office hour, lunchtime or office hour at the low office location. You generate more sales compared to lunchtime at what you call it less or what you call it more on the rural sides of the McDonald's store. They be able to capture that in the big data, and that data and that insight will be used on the monthly basis by their team to plan ahead the kind of promotion that we'll be doing, the kind of menu excitement. Menu excitement is actually a term refer to what are the menu that they wish to put up in the market in the future. And then the thing that need to be done on any store that may have less sales. So they may have to do some certain things that to jump back the scale. So the strategy and insight through data analytic that we captures in the McDonald's we use in every month. And all of the people, when I say all the people with the McDonald's, from the sales, the marketing, corporate comms, the operations, and also the risk and safety, food and beverages, all give the input to this person or the team in the data analytics so that they can get more what they call it impactful data for their decision making. And I witnessed myself during during the course of my training, the managing director of the McDonald's were focusing a lot of the data on the way on during the meeting. He questioned a lot, and he used that data as a point for him to make a strategic directions toward the business. And then the next one is on operation. So on the operation side, we will be given an orientation about how first the RSG operate, and secondly how the restaurant operation looks like. So meaning that there is one bosses that give briefing to us about how McDonald's kitchen operation, how McDonald's delivery operates, drive-through operate, how they make a decision to change the menu, what it takes if there is any issues about certain compliance to certain rules and regulation come up by the government, how they respond to it, especially when it comes times to at the time of COVID, there are certain rules that they need to change how the operation team responds towards that. And then it come up after the operation, there will be orientation or the development. Now this is where the interest on my part start to spark when there were a briefing given by the development people. It's actually from the real estate. So they talk about the new store development. how McDonald develop new store, how McDonald retain and refurbish current store to get updated to the latest trends and demand by the consumer, how McDonald make sure that the facilities and management of operation of all the equipment within the McDonald are given a top-notch action being taken and very taken care of. So this is where I see that the opportunity comes in. So they talk about how new stores been developed, what are the typical general processes were taken, and what are the roles and responsibilities of their team. So all the development to tell you on the briefly on the summary, basically what the development did was that any decision that were made from the big data, the strategic insight, will be cascaded by to the operation, corporate com, and human resources. They are the stakeholders, main stakeholders. And from that main stakeholders, okay, they will cascade down the requirement for the new store to the development division. So from there, the development division will start to implement the design, search for appropriate site for the development, obtain a necessary approval for the local authorities, and then start to construct the new stores. Okay, so that's where I can see that the roles of quantity surveyors has started to put a light on this my training, because I can see there's a various opportunities that I can first learn. Second, I might be able to contribute back in the sense of my role or the things that I have known in the past to the McDonald's. And finally, the orientation also touched about risk management and supply chain. We talk about how to tackle risk or the safety issues when happen in the store, and how to tackle risk within the supply chains. Remember, there was a time, I think, if not mistaken, last month, McDonald's was having some short of supply with the fries. Some were having issue with the chicken. So how they overcome, what are the things that they did, and what are the strategy that they taken. So basically, given an insight about how McDonald's operate. So that is the run through for about 2 days orientation. We each individuals bosses give their own orientation to us, and we give our feedback and also ask questions. And then after the orientation, this is, I would call it, is one of the memorable or the best part of my trainings. It really helped us to understand the food and beverages. The fellows will be put on training. We call it on-job training, OJT. So during this time, we will put is around 1 week trainings, 1 week training at any McDonald's selected. So I will be posted to the McDonald's Batu Cave. So I spend my time around 7 days, 1 week over there at McDonald's Batu Cave. We were given a task to immerse ourselves how a typical McDonald's restaurant is being operated. Okay, so we go through. They've given us assignment of 7 days at the McDonald's. There are checklists that we need to fulfill. What we need to learn, we need to write a report back to the McDonald's. We've been assigned to crew trainers that will be assisting us towards the process, and we need to also present back what we have learned to our managing director at that time. So I remember that I can share with you. There are several things on the screen that you can see. I was exposed to the first one, kitchen operation and cleanliness. So the first thing that we need to do is to be exposing to about kitchen operation and cleanliness. So I need to know how to handle kitchen equipment, how to handle cleanliness equipment, what are the routine that the normal staff will take care of during the time of service and non-services, the cleaning apparatus that need to be taken care of. From there, I also start to learn about food waste management. What are the practices of a McDonald's in terms of food waste management? Okay, they are very practical in handling food management, and also what they did on overall kitchen equipment maintenance. For your information, McDonald's on a daily basis, they will perform kitchen cleaning operation on every daily basis. So they will have a daily basis after the service hour. They will clean every single things. They will change all the cooking oil on a daily basis. Okay, and for once a week, they will have a deep cleaning services. Deep cleaning meaning that they will overhaul a lot of equipment just to make sure that the equipment are in a top-notch condition. So once a week, deep cleaning every day on a daily basis after operation, we will be required to clean up all the equipment apparatus that we use. Okay, from the tongs up to the kitchen fryer. And then secondly, during the course of the training also, we will be exposed to food safety. So we will put into a position, we have to be the crew itself, okay? When we do a training, it's not that we just stand there and see and witness how they operate. No, we were given a proper McDonald's crew's uniform. We need to be there and work as if we are the crew or the employee in that cafe. So we need to run the show as if as a similar staff. So the thing is that you were told that you just need to blend in, Saiful. Don't tell them who you are. Just blend in as a normal people. Now that is where the things start to get very nice and excitement. Of course, they when they get new stuff, some people want to get to know you. Some people don't want to get to know you. Some people just try to put their thinking on you and try to bully you. So it's a really fun things, but all that thing happened in a way that we were given exposure to understand things is much more deeper. So back to the food safety, my crew trainers exposed me about food training, about how long does it take. Let's say, for instance, a beef patty should be in the container. What are the requirements? How many seconds that you need to flip the burgers? How to make sure that, okay, on a certain period, if the fries is already no customers taking out the fries after a certain period of time, you need to dispose that into a waste material, waste bin, so that the quality is maintained, the food is not contaminated. Contamination is what I've learned, okay, in terms of how they conduct the training, food contamination, food safety, how they protect the food while waiting for the customers, what are the key temperatures for frying, key temperatures for food in the cabinet, all that. Now, the food safety training is actually meant to normal, what we call it, operation crew, is to make sure that the food are being safely being handled and passed over to the consumer. But on my part, what I see is that how the arrangement within the layout of the kitchen in the McDonald's will affect the food safety. Now, when affect the food safety, the perspective that I look is in terms of the tiling, the tiles that they use in the store, the stainless steel equipment that they use in the store, the tong that they use, the electricity, the air fryers, the air conditioning system, what is the temperature, what is the air blowers temperature, all of that things actually in my role of working as a quantity surveyor, they come back to the kind of understanding the equipment, understanding the specification, understanding about the operation of a proper kitchen, especially on the food and beverages industry, fast foods in this case. So that sum up about the food safety that I see. And the best part is when you go to the work itself, which is the ayam goreng, the burger, and the fry station. Remember when I said that I need to be working as a staff? So I was given a chance to fry the chicken, put up the batter for the chicken. There will be how many processes in one batches, how many chicken that you should put, how many numbers of flip that you need to do, how many the depth of the chicken before you can put into the fryers. All we were given the training, and of course the best part that you can get to taste the food that you have cooked. But of course, it's not a free flow. Okay, they have very strict rules in the McDonald's. Okay, that staff were given only one meal per service hour. So meaning that during my day at that time, I was spending around 8 hours a day. So I was given a chance to eat McDonald's. Okay, I think if not mistaken, once or twice per day. So once we finish up, then we're given a chance. So the ayam goreng, burgers, and fry stations, about processes, we also been given a chance to make coffee. Okay, we learn about making coffee, and then just to tell you some secrets. So if you're ordering coffee from McDonald's, okay, if you want to have a good quality coffee, hop into the dine-in section. where the coffee is being made by barista, because the one that you take from the drive-through is more on the machine side. It's an automatic machine. It's the same coffee, but when you get the coffee being made by the barista, you get better quality coffee. I can assure you that I tested it. I can see the difference. So that's the tips that I'm just sharing with you. And then on the on-site training also, I was given a chance to do the in terms of equipments, maintenance, kitchen layout design, and finally servicing. And if I'm not mistaken, I think Dr. Khalilah's spouse was one of the person who spotted me at the training session. At that time, I was sweeping the floor outside the parking lot. He was asking me, "What are you doing here?" I still can remember the face that he had during that time. So I was telling that I was on the on-job training. Now, to sum up, that on-job training is actually allow me to see the operational wise and how the layout of that particular kitchen affect people's working. Now, the question that I remember during the on-job training, and I have a session with one of their uh, managers, is about how the sizes of the kitchen, if you make it bigger, will it affect more productivity and increase more sales? That's a question. Because why? This thing come back to the next session, which is on the new store training, new store development that I'm going to share with you soon. And then I have to go through a bit quick, okay? And we were given the task to go to a nut and bolt training. The NAMBIT is an annual training for servicing crew, and also being given the opportunity to go for the franchisee meeting where I got a chance to meet with all the franchisees across Malaysia and exchange views about how they have gone through the process of franchisee. And then I'll take a tour. We can given a tour to across all the RSG group. So truth be told, all of them are very, very friendly at the RSG teams. That is the culture that I have learned is about how fast and quick they are in getting to know new people and accepting new people. That's very thing. And then finally, I also given a chance to go on market quest. A market quest is actually one of the trade secrets that they do, is to understand their rivals groups, rivals company, meaning that you go for certain areas, you look at what are the foods around that area, what are the fast food around the area, what are kind of dining experience they have in one particular area, before McDonald's can decide whether it's worth it to put up a new McDonald's around there. So market quest is about surveying a new areas of a market within certain region before they start to make up a new plan for McDonald's. So they don't necessarily open up McDonald's as they wish, but they do a market survey, a market quest, and the staff will be going on the market quest to experience and talk to the people. So I was given a chance to go into this quest and talk to the people and ask about consumers, about how they felt about their dining experience. So I need to put a report back to the teams. So now the third one is on the new store development. So we finished on the food and beverages, understanding their food and beverages services. Now I'm focusing toward what I have been put place to. I was positioned into the development division. Under this development division, I'm assisting both development division and also real estate development department. So this department basically under the McDonald's is responsible for three key things. First one is a new store development. They call it the NSD. Second is the existing store refurbishment and upgrading. And the third one is the operation and maintenance, which is more likely on the facilities management approach towards McDonald's. So because my background is a quantity surveyors, construction approach background, so they position me into the new store, to the development division. So that is where my roles and contributions start to comes in. Okay, so when I started the journey into an NSD, I was given a chance to have a session. We need to report on a monthly basis to our McDonald's Malaysian Managing Director. At that time was Mr. Azmi Jaafar. He's still until now. So he is currently the Managing Director. So this is the images of Mr. Azmi Jaafar alongside Dr. Farah. So on a monthly basis, we need to report on our progress, on what we have learned. And from there, he will give an insight about things that we need to improve on our own leaderships. So During the session also, we also given a chance to meet up and have a session with all the senior management team, the operation people, the marketing, the legal, the culture, corporate communication, and also the Royal McDonald's House of Charity. Okay, so we meet with the big bosses. We take lessons about how they operate their own portfolio. We also take lessons about how they handle situations, problems, and constraints. And we exchange our dialogue in terms of how best we can transform ourselves to become a better leader. And that is what the engagement session is all about. All this when I was in the news development division's position. Okay, now when we finish the engagement, so the real work start to come in. So if you can look at the side, my slide here, I put there a forming, storming, norming, and performing. In the management terms, is a four processes of a team performing. You need to form a team. You need to form a team of having same interest people, having same knowledge and technical abilities, with diversities of experiences. And then you have to come to the stage where storming, in which you start to adjust yourself to differences of people in your team, and then things start to normalize, and finally you start to perform. And that is how I see my time at the McDonald's. Getting up to the team at the very first is quite hard because they are not sure what is your capability, what is your ability. They only know you as an academician, but they do not know about the things that you may have be able to contribute. What I have in mind at that time was that when there was an academician coming into to train, they were thinking that the only thing I can do is just to write things, to write papers, and to writing activities. Okay, but to some extent, some of my staff or my team members at that time were thinking I was an intern. I mean, that's not a problem at all for me. Okay, so what are the tasks, responsibilities that I have done at McDonald's and being exposed to? Okay, we have gone through to various store and site visit across Malaysia to look out for new areas for site development, construction site in progresses, and to find any potential areas. I'm involved into various consultant meeting. Consultant meeting is for new store development, and if you have a new store development within oil, petrol, gas punya station, let's say for example Petronas, you'll be having a meeting with Petronas dagangan punya team, and I was given a chance to be involved and also rewrite back a project management manual. They also asked me or give me a task to conduct training, project management training towards their staff. And I also involved in revisiting the quantity surveyors role within the new store development, meaning to see how best to improve the quantity surveyors roles in the new store development within the McDonald's. I also given a chance to look at the way how can I improve contract draftings, because there are certain issues within the McDonald's in terms of construction that have room for improvement. Therefore, I step in to introduce some improvement in terms of contract drafting. And my role as a quantity surveyor is more on cost saving. I look into the cost management aspect of new store development. So I'll run a little bit quick on this. Just I think time is of the essence right now. In terms of store and site visit consultant meeting, what we did was that I was given a chance to go through the real life project, walk through a real life Gantt chart, walk through given all the insight that's supposed to be done by a typical construction technical team, project managers, quantity surveyors, input. And the good thing about when you're given the chance is that they listen to your comment, they take your comments into account, and to a certain extent, they implemented it. There are some improvement, there are some work they have done that were taken into on board and were implemented at the McDonald's levels. So example here, this is what we call it McDonald's Tampin, that was that time, McDonald's construction of McDonald's Tampin. And you can see there is a Gantt chart that I helped them to assist them to improvise how they perform. Okay, we went through the site visit. Okay, and then this is my biggest task at the McDonald's during my time of intern there. Okay, at that time, when the first during when I start coming to the team, the forming time, where people still not understanding or not knowing me in the full manner, I took my time to read their manuals. When I took the time to read their manual and understanding new store development processes, I found there are various improvements that can be made. There are various things that were done that were not aligned with the manual. So I took a chance and highlighted all the things that I've observed in the manual, and I talked to my boss. And my boss at that time was the development division's managers, directors, Mr. Said Reza. He was a very helpful person, very resourceful. So I consulted him and explained to him about things that I have observed that can be improved in terms of manual. And I give some solution, and through that was given to me as my task. So what I did was that in the manual is that the manual is actually meant for new store development, meaning that McDonald's having a system where there is a new store development, all processes will be followed by that particular manual, be it in terms of approving authority, being in terms of design, being in terms of managing the project, contract drafting, all refer to that particular manual. So I was given a task to update that particular manual. So the process involved for me is I need to be in consultation with various stakeholders, all the operation wise, the maintenance, the marketing people, the legals, the corporate comms, for me to understand and update. And then I start to propose and revisit back the role and responsibilities based on observation and improve back the process flow. At the same time, also I look back how best I can improve the cost management aspect of the project by introducing some measures. And finally, I work with the legal department to improve contract drafting on the letter of award and also contract with contractors and McDonald's. So the output that I got, that I produced within the time that I have 6 months during that period, was that I updated the McDonald's project management manuals. So it become, instead of right now, it become project management manual 2020. So that manual is being used for all new store developments for McDonald's across Malaysia. That's I think that was one of the good contribution that I have made towards McDonald's. It's a small part, but I think it's really worthwhile of the experience. I managed to assist them to revise the role and responsibility of the architects, the engineers, the land surveyors, quantity surveyors, the real estate people. So we put it in a proper channel so that people understand their roles. Because at that time there was some gray areas whether we are not sure who's responsible to handle certain tasks. So I revised that. I assist them to make it much more clearer in the task management under the manuals. And also, I sit down with the architect of the McDonald's to see how best areas for improvement in terms of time. So I managed to do procurement processes for project in terms of normal and also fast track, meaning that I shorten the construction time. I involved in producing the construction Gantt charts that were used in the McDonald's project managers, critical path methods, produce several Microsoft Excel template to be used by project managers and the development division team in terms of cost tracking, variation orders management, project timeline tracking, contractors management, vendors management, and finally on the legal contract drafting. So let me share some of the example that here. So these are the things that I revised in terms of flowcharts. Basically, on average, McDonald's open up their store around 4 to 4.5 months every store from the beginning of the design until completion. Meaning, once the design already completed, the construction start most likely around 4 to 4.5 months. So one of my tasks is to rearrange back the procurement and also the processes of the project management with a store construction. And there are fast tracking processes approach where I can reduce from the 4.5 to 4 or even 3.5 month construction process using the what you call it critical path methods. So I'm using this approach to assist McDonald's team to see there are ways that they can shorten their construction time and allow them to open up the store much more earlier, therefore giving them the opportunity to gain more sales at a much more earlier time. So that's what I did have contributed in terms of the things. This is an example. This is a copyright from the McDonald's that I given to them. Okay. And finally is on the training. I was given a task to train the project managers of the McDonald's. So I need to prepare 10 modules, project time management, cost management, procurement management, contract management, variation management, contract. I split into pre-contract management, post-contract management. So images that you have in front here is I'm doing the work breakdown structures, training with all the project managers in the McDonald's. So we completed this one. And then, of course, it's a good time that I have in McDonald's with me and my team at McDonald's. There was a bunch of very good and friendly people around. They were very helpful. They were very energetic. They are so passionate about the things that they did. And which is, at the end of the day, it opened up my mind. It's not just about a fast food. It's about the entire process, the entire people's about aligning themselves to the culture that they have and perform. So I think that's some of the things that I have in terms of what you call it, the exposure that I have in McDonald's. It opened up the way I see things. At first, I thought I have no way that I can contribute, but I found out that the ever-growing 300 plus stores on McDonald's that they have, and on average 30 to 20 to 30 stores they open up on annually, that give plenty of room for the quantity surveyors or anybody with a construction related practices can contribute back in the McDonald's. And I remember the final day that I have with McDonald's, they told me that the managing director told me that there always room for improvement, Saiful. Even though we have come out to a process and come up with a manual that we think that we can far reaching our processes, there's still room for improvement. And I really look forward for that in the future. And it's been a good time for me. All right. So, any thoughts or any things that you want to ask? So, I'll shall pass back to Dr. Khalilah. If there is any question that you want to ask for the members or anyone, so let me just stop sharing for a while. All right.
Thank you so much, Dr. Saiful. It was actually quite a funny moment when you said that upon your first day, they thought you were the new CEO. Inshallah, one day I make doa for you.
Oh,
Um,
you know what? That story is actually because the thumbprint need to be set up by the IT team. So when the IT team they receive the email, they set up my name, they put CEO, and then when the first day I came in, I introduced myself to the IT team. So I'm Saiful. I need to register my thumbprint, and the rumors start to spread. Oh, there's a new CEO, and it happened that remember that my first day I was wearing a tie. They was thinking that there's something, a change of cultures happening.
yeah.
And finally,
So,
I have to reduce myself and say, no, no, it's actually I am just an intern, just
right.
to
Well,
mention.
I bet we're gonna look at maybe 5 years, 10 years ahead, and that might become a true story, inshallah.
Yes, inshallah.
Okay, so you went from being, people assume you were CEO to somebody assume you were an intern. And then
Yes,
you went from flipping burgers, wash the kitchen, throw out the
yes,
trash, make coffee, to talking to the MD. It was, I must say that, just listening from it, it must have been a breadth of experience. I'm going to
yes.
reserve my question towards the end. I'm going to address some of the questions from our audience. So, first of all, thank you everyone who's currently joining us from YouTube Live. And our Office of Industrial Link just recently shared the link for registration and certificate.
Okay.
So do fill that in while we do the Q&A, and also give us the feedback session. So Datin Nuina from IUM, thank you Datin for joining us,
Oh,
was
thank you,
interested
Ratin.
on the project management aspect. And I think Dr. Saiful, you have shared your experience towards the end of having experience in McDonald's in project management. Maybe if you could share any one or two particular thing that you thought from McDonald's project management that was very much similar or seamless to a QS in built environment.
Okay. This is what my personal encounter with the managing director, Mr. Azmi. Uh, if you read through his experience, if you Google his experience previously, before in Malaysia, he was running McDonald's in China. Okay, at that time when he was in China, he was managing about, I think, if not mistaken, around 200 plus McDonald's stores in China, and ever growing around 30 plus stores. So what happened that he shared to me that what he said in China, Saiful, the way that they construct the store on average is around 2 to 2.5 months. 2 to 2.5 months, as compared to Malaysia is we are using around 4 to 4.5 months per store. We are talking about one single store with a drive-through. So that is the challenge. So he was saying to me that because in China they are using computerized design, they are using building information modeling, they are using Autodesk Revit. That helps to shorten the construction process. So he passed the ball rolling to me and asked me, "Can you do that?" And first thing I say, 6 months it will not be able, but I will look at how the project management manual can address. So that's why I start to look at the construction process. They don't have they do have the process, but what they are lacking in terms of improvement is the processes to put up in very detail and attach the timeline into it. So that what I did. The timeline that they have and the processes I mash together into an Excel, and I generate a simulation and talk to the team back. Look, this is a typical project timeline that you have. There are room and improvement that you can make if you were to squeeze, or certain thing it can be done in parallel, shorten the time. So based on the critical path method, that's what I did, and eventually they see there's an improvement to it. So that's the challenge lah. That it sounds like an easy task, but to get the things done is very, very difficult, because I need to get a lot of approval from the stakeholders to be convinced enough. Yeah, the talk about convincing, when in the corporate world, people, you need to show and prove. Because people will have a different expectation when you come in, that saying that you need to improve it, you need to change it. They will be asking, who are you? Who are you? What is your role in doing this thing? So I need to make sure that I need to build the relationship to show that I'm capable to doing it, to show that there will be a result out of what I have recommended. So that is one, I think, that one of the most challenging part lah, to convince people to understand the way that you're doing things.
Right, and like to get the buy-ins, because everything is
Yes, get the
quantified
buy-in.
and dollars and cents, and you want to make sure that you're I mean, even as a company or institution, you're spending efficiently and wisely. And I think
Yes,
that's an example of how you shared. Typically we would think that as a quantity surveyor, you would be working perhaps as a consultant in a government agency, in a developer, or maybe on like a pure construction industry. But now, I think from the CEO at faculty program, we are exposed to, even in GLCs, that typically we don't think quantity surveyor would be applying for a job at McDonald's, but indeed
yes.
it's very much
You
needed.
can.
And then, like you said, there's always a room for improvement where you contributed your own expertise into improving an F&B industry. Okay,
Yes.
so now, yeah, go
Just,
ahead,
just,
go ahead.
just to share, you about that point. When I joined the McDonald's at that time, there was only one quantity surveyors. Only one quantity surveyor doing all the things. When I left, I heard from back in the RSG team, they say they are looking for more quantity surveyors, because resulting from the things that I have done, they see that they are, oh, the QS role is actually contributing to what they process. They start to find more. But
Masya
unfortunately, I couldn't get a spot for myself lah.
I mean, that opens up opportunity for our new graduates also to
Yes, yes,
widen their search for potential careers later on.
correct, correct.
Okay, so we have another question from Dr. Suhaila. Now, you have been involved over the 6 months, maybe some of the portion doing on-ground work, like you mentioned during the orientation week. So, did you have any exposure or experience in terms of how McDonald's reduce their waste management?
Okay. This one is my, I might not be talking very comprehensively, but my short experience on the OJT, what I see is that on a daily basis, okay, food wastages at the end of the day, there will be a separate bins that they have in the store, okay, for chickens, for burgers. I think it goes by the proteins lah, proteins, carbo. They're separate by the bins, and then towards the end of the service time, we will calculate and weight that waste. there will be an index of calculation. So that weights will be calculated and converted into dollars and cents, and that will be a reporting waste for that store on that particular day. So what happened was that, let's say I couldn't remember this one, I couldn't remember the numbers, but every McDonald's store, they will have their own ID number. Batu Cave, if not mistaken, is 315 numbers and number ID. So there will be like one screen that we can see on a daily basis how each store rank on a daily basis. In terms of waste, they can see how much waste that you have accumulated on that particular days. So with that kind of display, people in that store will really cautious not to make sure that the food wastage is not so high, because they want to show that they are on the leaderboard of the food wastage. So they macam make sure everything has been done, macam make sure takkan jadilah, you cannot be, jangan bagi ayam jatuh lah, apalah, that kind of things.
Right. So
So
that
that's what I see lah.
to weigh the waste to
Yes.
see how much is being
And then
wasted.
of course, at the end there will be a company outside, external company vendors who come and pick up the waste and go for processing lah. But that I did not explore. I wish to explore at that time because I have a quite interest to look at waste management. But too much thing that I have put on my head, and I said that's it lah, takat tu je lah on project management.
I think that's a very important lesson, especially now in Ramadan, right?
Yes.
Sometimes, and then this is the first time after we have had several MCOs that we sort of have, full-fledged Ramadan experience, especially in terms of, getting food from outside. So I think Weigh the Waste could be like a campaign that people start doing, and that is a competition where you don't want to win on the
Yes.
leaderboard, right?
Yes,
You wouldn't
yes,
want
yes.
to be
It's
the top.
very. Because I thought at first leaderboard is only for the sales. It's also something got to do with waste. So that's that. But of course, that one is just internal part. I mean, for us public, we couldn't see the leaderboard, but we can see internet. Oh, they ada benda tu. Is that's how they motivate the people so that they make sure everything was really well packed off lah. Tak ada, no waste at all.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. Okay, so now we're at 12 p.m. I'm going to wrap up with my final question. So like I said, yeah, you went on the ground, you flipped burgers, you fried French fries, and you fried chicken, you made coffee. You even met my husband when you wanted to throw the
That's
trash out.
right.
And he was asking me, what is Saiful doing at McDonald's? But at the same time, you also had engagement and discussions with the managers, managing directors,
Yes.
look into projects and planning at a bigger scale. So you went, at shifting scales on the ground and also at the management level. So what would be your main takeaway as a lecturer, as a QS, as a researcher, and something that you can share with your students now that you're back in the university?
Okay, I have one sentence or tagline that really for me is a take home from my McDonald's experience. Across all the process, I remember a very one-to-one session with the MD. He told me that risk can be calculated. So at that point, how I sum up is that there are times where I see that it's not possible things to be done in a way, say project management, reducing the cost. I have some barriers that I see I cannot be done, or it cannot be done. Is a very serious thing. Is very what they call it, dangerous to do this thing, whether it's ethical or not. But what he taught me is about you need to take risk into your own hands. You need to be able to calculate that risk, and from that risk, you chart your own strategic way. What he's trying to say is that don't say no at the very beginning and put a barrier in front of you, because when you being exposed to all the big bosses in the McDonald's, you start to see things. Oh, there are things that I don't know what they are talking about. They're talking about sales. They're talking about big data. They're talking about numbers on how they can improve their sales based on the big data. And I was quite not sure what it's all about. But when he walked through that the risk can be calculated, it opened up my mind to see that, this thing will benefit me in a certain way. And by open up my mind and calculate all the issues and constraints, I'll be able to move forward in the area that I'm moving. So this experience, like I think I also can be thankful to you lah for saying to take McDonald's. At first, remember I said to you I don't want to take McDonald's, but if you're given a chance, I'll still definitely go back again, because I think they have given me a lot of tons of knowledge and experience lah. Okay,
That's great. Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Saiful. I think another key lessons that I see from the CFP experience is that how we have to be agile and adaptable.
yes,
Because of course we each have our own expertise or technical knowledge, but it does not limit us within our confined
right.
field or boundary. From Dr. Saiful's experience, I'm pretty sure that all of you who joined us today can see how he has expanded his experience and also contributed from the field of built environment to the F&B industry. And there's actually a link. There's always a way to contribute. It's not separated,
Yes,
and there's always room to improve. And then to conclude from today's session from Dr. Saiful is that risk can be calculated. So don't be afraid to take risk. And then also from me and from all, keep learning. And there's always a way for us to contribute and find our place in the world. So thank you again, Dr. Saiful. We had some thumbs up and hi from other CEO and faculty fellow members.
thank you so
So for
much.
those of you, don't forget to subscribe to Oil's channel because we will have more interesting and captivating webinars in the future. So have a blessed Ramadan and Selamat Hari Raya Aidilfitri for the
Selamat hari to
upcoming.
you too.
Yes, so drive safe, Dr. Saiful, and to everyone. Thank you
You too.
again.
Thank
Assalamualaikum
you.
warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you.